this was allegedly a romantical thing. It's all right, I'll say alleged, but we know. Yeah, she hit it before Beyonce.
Foxy Brown was the baddest woman in rap, and every man in the game wanted her close. Some of these rappers ended up in messy affairs that one man swears up and down happened while the other side just laughs it off. Some of these stories are gonna surprise you, and one or two might just change how you see the whole late 90s rap game. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Jay-Z, Sean Carter. Let's start with the one everybody and their mama argues about. When Foxy was still a teenager coming up out of Brooklyn, she got pulled into Jay-Z's world early, back when he was still building his name off of Reasonable Doubt around 1996. He put her on Ain't No co-wrote big chunks of her debut Il Na Na, and helped turn her into one of the top female MCs in the whole country. On paper, the whole thing looked like mentor and student, just two hungry kids from the same city trying to eat and make it out. And to this day, Foxy has always said that's exactly what it was. Nothing more, nothing less. But you already know the streets and the tabloids never let anything stay that clean. For years and years, people whispered that the two of them were way more than business partners, and that rumor finally exploded when Nas took a shot at Jay on the 2001 diss Ether, dragging Foxy's name into it just to embarrass him. That one single line kept the gossip breathing for over 2 decades. Foxy herself has never once backed that story though, and every single time it circles back around, she shuts it down hard and fast. When the noise got loud again in 2024, she went straight to Instagram and made it plain as day, saying folks wanted her to turn on Hov so bad that they were out here pushing fake news and warning people to stop playing with her name. What she keeps circling back to is the come-up, not the bedroom. On camera, she has spoken on how deep the bond really runs, and it goes through family and the grind, not romance.
Jay and I come from nothing together. My cousin Clark Kent is the reason why we are all on, and that is my blood cousin.
So here's the honest read on this one. The professional relationship is 100% real, and it's the thing that made her a star in the first place. The intimate rumor has followed her for more than 20 years, and it will probably never fully die. But the woman right at the center of it has denied it over and over and over again. So the regret people came here expecting just isn't sitting here, because by her own word, the thing they keep whispering about never even happened. Corrupt, Ricardo Brown. Now this one right here is real, and everybody in the game knows it. In the late 90s, Foxy and Corrupt from Thar Dog Pound were one of the most talked about couples in the entire culture. An East Coast queen and a West Coast heavy hitter locking in right when the two coasts were still tense and beefing with each other. That alone made them a big deal, because them getting together felt like a peace treaty nobody expected. They got engaged around 1997, and Corrupt was never hiding how he felt about her. He has talked about her with straight love in his voice, calling her Inga and making it clear he loved that girl for real. He tells it himself that being with her flipped his whole life plan upside down. He walked away from death row, sold his house out in Van Nuys, sold his dogs, all 22 of them, and packed up and moved across the entire country, partly because of the woman he was trying to build a real life with. That's not a little crush. That's a man rearranging his whole world. Then it all fell apart, and it fell apart loud and in public.
My girlfriend at the time was #1 girl in the world.
Foxy Brown.
Then when I got with Foxy Brown, I knew it was real. My girlfriend is the biggest in the globe.
And you guys were engaged.
Cheating rumors started swirling around, with DMX and Keith Murray's names both getting tossed into the mix, and Corrupt believed enough of it to put all his hurt down on wax. He dropped calling out names and went at DMX directly, taking something that should have stayed private and blasting it out to the whole industry. Foxy later hopped on Wendy Williams and pointed the finger at Eve for stirring the pot and running her mouth, but by then, the damage was already done, and the beef was already out there. Here's where the actual regret lives though. Years down the line, Corrupt looked back on the whole thing and admitted the diss wasn't his proudest moment at all, that he was young, deep in his feelings, and let his emotions run the whole show. He even squashed it and made peace with the man he had been beefing with.
It was over your ex? Or what was,
Yeah.
is that what it was?
Yeah, you know, it was, I was in my feelings.
So understand his regret isn't about loving her or being with her, it's about how loud and how public he let that breakup get. DMX, Earl Simmons. DMX is the name that turned Foxy's messy breakup into a full-blown beef. Around 1998 and 1999, right as things were going all the way bad with Corrupt, talk started spreading fast that Foxy and X had gotten close, and the two of them already had a natural reason to be in the same rooms together because they both moved through the Def Jam and Rough Riders world and had even linked up musically on Dog and a Fox from China Doll. So when those rumors hit the street, they weren't hard at all for people to believe. According to the story that got told years later, Corrupt only found out about any of it because of Foxy her own self, and that little detail is a huge part of why this whole thing blew up the way that it did. Think about that for a second. The information came from the inside.
The reason why Corrupt ever found out anything about DMX having a crush or liking me was through her.
Corrupt took it as a straight-up violation and came for X hard on the record, but X, being who he was, didn't fire back with a normal diss track like everybody expected. Instead, a few months later, he dropped Party Up, and the folks who knew the backstory swore up and down that some of those lines were aimed right at Corrupt. He never once confirmed it out loud, but the timing said everything that needed to be said, and years later, people were still sitting there connecting the dots on how a whole party anthem was secretly doubling as a quiet answer to a diss.
What was crazy was when I found out that Party Up was the answer to calling out names. Right.
As for Foxy, she never fed that fire either. She told Wendy Williams straight up that she and DMX never had a single thing going on between them, and X stayed mostly quiet on it too, never really addressing it head on. So on this one, when you look at the receipts, there's no confirmed relationship and no real regret from either of them. It's just a rumor that grew legs and turned two grown men against each other. And after X sadly passed in 2021, all of these old stories came right back around as the culture looked back on his life and his legacy, Keith Murray. Now, if you came here for some actual regret, Keith Murray is your guy. He and Foxy went way back on the professional side, crossing paths real early when she made her big debut on LL Cool J's I Shot Ya remix right alongside him and a whole gang of other East Coast names, so the two of them already knew each other well before anything else ever popped off between them. Years later, Murray went on camera and told a wild story. He claimed that while Foxy was engaged to Corrupt, the two of them ended up together at a hotel out in LA after a Def Squad show, and he did not spare a single detail while telling it. He also swears the whole thing was a setup from the jump, that she wanted to get caught on purpose just to make Corrupt jealous while the coastal tension was already boiling over.
But after the show, went into the hotel and she gave me hardcore head. And I said, yo, I see what you trying to do. You trying to pin two rappers against each other. So I spent off and went the other way, and she went right to him.
The way he tells it, walking out of that hotel and watching her run straight over to Corrupt flipped something inside of him, and he left that whole situation with a real bad taste in his mouth about it.
That's when I knew females are no go.
That's regret right there, plain as day, no way around it. But here's the other half of the story that you have to give the audience to be fair, because Foxy did not sit quiet on any of it. When his story went around the internet again, she fired right back and called him a crackhead, laughing the whole thing off as nothing but lies. And the truth is, nobody ever backed up his account except for him. So treat this one as exactly what it is, one man's word standing against hers, and let the people decide who they believe. Rick Ross. Let's jump the timeline forward some, because not everything Foxy touched was 90s drama. Around 2008, while she was out here fighting hard to get her comeback going, she and Rick Ross got linked up as a couple, and for a good minute there the blogs were treating them like hip-hop's brand new power pair. And honestly, it made sense on paper. Two people with heavy street reputations, two people with that big boss energy, so folks ran with the story real fast and started building them up as royalty. Some outlets even pushed it a whole step further and started saying the two of them were engaged and about to walk down the aisle. Ross shut that part all the way down himself though, and he did it in the most Rick Ross way you could possibly imagine. When people came at him asking about wedding bells and rings, he just waved the whole thing off and said the engagement talk was pure speculation and that he was married to the money instead of any woman. Classic rosé, turning a relationship question into a bar. The real truth is this one was short, and it was mostly hype from the beginning. There was no big collaboration that ever came out of it, no messy public public breakup that spilled into the news, and no diss track when it finally ended. It just ran its natural course over a matter of months, and then quietly faded away, while both of them stayed locked in on their own careers. Ross was riding high off of all that Port of Miami momentum and building his empire, and Foxy was dealing with her own legal battles and health issues at the time, so there's no regret to find here, no heartbreak either, just a brief little moment that gave the gossip pages something to chew on for a season before everybody moved right along. Nas is a whole different kind of link, because the strongest part of it is actually the music itself. Foxy was the one and only woman inside the firm, the supergroup Nas built alongside AZ and Cormega back in 1996 and 1997, and that put her right smack in the middle of one of the most respected circles in all of New York rap. Being trusted enough to sit in that room with those lyricists said a whole lot about exactly where she stood as an artist. That wasn't a cosign you could buy, and the way she even got in with Nas in the first place came straight through AZ, who has told the story himself of how the connection actually happened. He knew Foxy from around the neighborhood, through the homies and through her brother, so it was natural for him to be the bridge. He's the one who brought her into the fold and made the introduction that started it all.
I knew Fox. One of the homies introduced me to Fox, but I've been to her brother, met Fox, whatever, through the homies, introduced her to Nas.
So then where does all the romance talk even come from? Well, mostly from that same ether line, because Nas used the Foxy and Jay-Z rumor as ammunition in the diss, and that made a lot of people sit back and wonder how he seemed to know so much about the situation. But real talk, that's a stretch when you break it down, and there's no actual proof the two of them were ever together like that. What's really documented and solid is a strong working relationship and a whole lot of mutual respect, with Foxy naming Nas as one of her biggest influences coming up. So this one is a rumor built off of a single bar, not a breakup. No regret here, just a gang of classic New York music. Benzino. Now we're getting into the names that live mostly on the dating lists and the old message boards. Benzino, the Boston rapper who co-owned the Source magazine back in its heyday, gets tied to Foxy from the late 90s and early 2000s, and the two of them did actually link up on a record called Picture This. That collaboration right there is really the whole anchor for this entire rumor, the one concrete thing people point to. But once you get past the song, the details get real thin, and you have to be honest about that. There's no big interview from either one of them ever laying out an actual relationship, no paparazzi run catching them together, no messy fallout, nothing but the kind of link that got assumed because two artists happened to work together during an era when a feature and a romance often got blurred into the exact same thing. And Boston and New York had plenty of overlap back during Foxy's peak, so their circles crossed all the time, which gave the gossip somewhere easy to grow and take root. So let's be straight with the audience on this one and not oversell it. It's a tabloid level rumor with a song attached to it, and nothing more solid than that has ever come out in all these years. There's no regret to speak of, no confirmation from either side, and no real drama that came from it. It's on the list because his name keeps popping up in these Foxy roundups over and over, but if you're the type that needs receipts before you believe something, just know that on this one, there simply aren't any to show you. What it really tells you is how the media worked back in that era, where two artists could hop on one song together, and by the end of the month, the streets had them married with kids. That was just the environment Foxy was moving through, and Benzino is a perfect example of how easy a working relationship turned into a rumored romance without anybody ever having to prove a thing. Mino is honestly one of the quietest entries on this whole entire list. Both of them are Brooklyn down to the bone, and around 1999, right when Foxy was riding high off of China Doll, his name started getting tied to hers in fan roundups and hip-hop history posts all over the place. At the time, he was still coming up hard out of the streets with that raw, gritty sound of his, and she was already a full-blown star, so a Brooklyn to Brooklyn link was something people could easily picture in their heads. But imagine is really the key word right there, because there's almost nothing on record for this one at all. No confirmed interviews about a romance, no joint project with any kind of real romantic weight behind it, and no paparazzi moment that ever stamped it as true. Whatever people think happened between them reportedly stayed way under the radar. Now Mino has talked about all kinds of rumored celebrity connections over the years in his various sit-downs and interviews, but he has never once gone deep on a Foxy situation specifically, which tells you something about how thin the ground is here. So this This is another one where the honest and right thing to do is just keep it light and not blow it up. It's persistent on the lists, which is the whole reason it made the cut for this video, but it flat out lacks the kind of primary source that would let you actually call it real. No drama ever came from it, no disses got made, and there's no regret sitting here from either side. It's just two Brooklyn names that the internet decided a long time ago to pair up together. So take it for exactly what it is, a rumor with some hometown roots and honestly not much else standing behind it. Akon. Akon is a fun one to close in on because it comes from a totally different lane than everybody else on here, somewhere around the late 90s or the early 2000s, and some retrospectives even push it to 2002. His name pops up in Foxy's dating history as a short, low-key, rumored thing. This was right as Akon was starting to rise up with that soulful, melodic, international sound he brought to the game, so the idea of pairing his smooth voice with Foxy's hard rap edge sounded interesting to a lot of people on paper. It felt like a crossover before crossovers were the norm. The problem though, same as a few of these others, is that neither one of them ever really came out and confirmed a single thing about it. There's no famous collaboration tied straight to the rumor, no juicy anecdotes floating around, and no drama that ever spilled out into the public eye. Their two worlds crossed through the same industry circles, and that closeness was really enough all by itself for the link to end up in the timelines and the lists. It landed in a stretch of Foxy's career after China Doll, and right before she stepped back from the spotlight for a while, so it reads a lot more like a quiet little footnote than any kind of headline. So bottom line, this one is soft, and there's no shame in saying that plainly. It's a brief, unconfirmed pairing that shows up in the aggregated dating sites without much meat on the bone to back it up. Both artists were way more locked into their music than their personal publicity at that particular time in their lives, which is probably the exact reason the details are so thin. So, no regret to find here, no heartbreak, just a small blip on the radar that the dating sites have decided to keep alive all these years later. Diddy, Sean Combs. We're gonna close the whole thing out with the biggest mogul name of them all. Diddy shows up on Foxy's list as an alleged encounter, the kind of thing that gets casually listed in those encounters roundups right next to a whole bunch of other famous names. Back in the 90s and the 2000s, the bad boy world and the Def Jam world were constantly bumping right into each other all over New York, so the two of them were around the same scenes and the same parties plenty of times over the years. But when you actually go looking for the specifics, there's basically nothing there to hold on to, no confirmed dates, no romantic appearances together anywhere, and no detailed interview from either side ever spelling a single thing out. It fits a pattern that people love to point to, which is Foxy being tied to powerful men all throughout the industry, but a pattern by itself isn't proof of anything. And more recently, as Diddy's legal situation has been all over the news cycle, his name keeps getting pulled into these broader industry conversations, and Foxy sometimes gets mentioned in that same breath. But even with all of that, she has never once laid out any kind of personal involvement with the man, so treat this last one exactly like the mogul rumor that it is, nothing more. The industry proximity between them was very real, an actual relationship was never confirmed by anybody, and Foxy herself has never co-signed any of the talk. It rounds out our list as one more clear example of how her name got attached to the most powerful men in the room, whether the real story ever backed it up or not. And really, that's the whole theme of her career in a nutshell, a talented young woman whose name got borrowed by every big story in the game, whether she signed off on it or not. Now I really want to hear from you on this one. Which of these stories surprised you the most, and which ones do you think are straight cap and made up? Do you actually believe Keith Murray, or are you rocking with Foxy on that whole situation? Drop your honest takedown in the comments and let's argue about it together. And if you made it all the way to the end with me, show a brother some love, tap that like button, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because we've got way more untold hip-hop stories coming that you are not even ready for. I'll catch you in the next video.